Ricky V, and you're listening to episode number 51 of the Elite Fitness Podcast. And in this one, we're going to revisit the Ronnie Coleman interview on the Joe Rogan Podcast. That happened just over a year ago. Me and Steve listened to part of the interview live and gave our commentary on it. It's a really, really good episode. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. It's an oldie but a goodie. If you've never heard it and heard our commentary on it, here is the Ronnie Coleman interview on Joe Rogan per Steve Schmee and mine's opinion. Here we go.
Evolutionary Network Podcast coming your way, guys. Number 334. Steve Smee here, and Rick, as always, my co-host. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
So we're going to do a special podcast, guys. We're going to be discussing the Ronnie Coleman interview. He was on a podcast, and he spilled some information, which is really cool because I've interviewed Mr. Olympia champions before, and they've been very, very zip-locked mouth, and they haven't really talked about much. So it's interesting because Ronnie Coleman kind of gave a lot of information, which was really, really cool. And we're going to talk about that, right, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really important interview that everybody's been talking about. And I've discussed it privately with people, but since I hear so much buzz about it, I think we should do a whole podcast just on it, just going over the interview and giving you guys our opinions on what he's saying.
Yeah, so I mean, about 3 years ago, I interviewed Frank Zane, who won the Mr. Olympia back, I believe, in 1977, was it? And it was either 77 or 78. And he didn't really give us much information. I did the interview with Trevor. You guys can look it up. He didn't really give much information in that podcast, but in this podcast, Ronnie Coleman actually does give some information. Is it all truthful? Probably, I would say some of it probably may not be, but I think a lot of it was. I don't think he has any particular reason to lie. So, yeah, let's get into it, Rick.
All right, great. So we're just going to get started with the interview at the point that Joe starts asking Ronnie about steroids, which is about 1 hour and 12 minutes in. So here we go.
I miss those days.
God damn. Now, what kind of steroids were dudes doing back then?
Basic. You got, your tests, D-ball. It's just basic stuff, And back then, because the DA had come in and was trying to find out what we were all doing, they made us do it legally. So, you had to go to the doctor and get all these prescriptions.
And you would get prescriptions for steroids?
Yeah.
What kind of steroids would they give you a prescription for?
Like any kind of test you needed. They would give growth hormone. They give prescriptions because once the DEA came in, they was like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all taking?
But when you think, like, the DEA shouldn't...
Hey, so that in that clip, he mentions Dianabol, and then he mentions the script. Dianabol was not available for script after 1983, 85 is when it was it stopped becoming a prescription drug. So probably not a good chance he could have gotten a prescription for Dianabol. As far as the script goes and the stuff he was taking, I do believe that he was able to get a script at the time. Before all the Barry Bonds stuff, before all of those scandals when Ronnie was in his heyday, really, you could get a script for a lot of stuff. It wasn't until baseball got really into it that they started shutting down the rejuvenation clinics and all these things. But really, around the Ronnie era, these steroids were, you could get a script for a lot of stuff back then.
You could get a script, but not for the dosages that a pro bodybuilder would run. So that's a lie that he was saying there, straight up. Because, a typical testosterone dosage just for a gym rat if you're running testosterone with an oral, you're going to run 500 milligrams. Okay, that's the moderate dosage, and that's a strong dosage. A script for testosterone, the most TRT script that I've seen today, with all these anti-aging clinics who just want to make money off of people, they might go 200, maybe 250 a week. They're not going to go more than that, and that's even too high. So back then, you would probably be lucky to get a script for like 100, 125 milligrams a week, which is the way it's supposed to be for TRT. You're not supposed to get scripted for 200, 250 milligrams. That's just anti-aging clinics trying to get money. So let's say he had an aggressive doctor that he was working with, and the doctor, gave him. You think the doctor is going to risk losing his license to prescribe twice the amount? Probably not. What about 4, 5, 6 times the amount of what you're supposed to get scripted for? If he got caught, the doctor, he could lose his medical license. And it costs 6 figures to even get through medical school. So he's going to sacrifice that medical license that he had to spend so much to get just to prescribe steroids to a bodybuilder? I don't think so. So, something is fishy on that. Because back then you didn't have these anti-aging clinics the way you have today. The guys who run these anti-aging clinics don't care if they lose their license because they're just trying to grift and hustle as much money as they can before they get shut down. But back then no doctor is going to risk his license. So he was lying on that. What do you think, Rick?
I think he mentioned Debo, like I said. Basically he mentioned Debo, which was not available for prescription when he was competing. So he probably did get a script because he needed to have one, as he said, but he probably tossed a little bit more on top of that. Now, I just want to say something. I'm not going to really sit here and today and accuse, I'll just tell you guys over the start, and accuse Ronnie of really being a liar and doing, massive dosages and downplaying it. I'm not. I actually believe Ronnie stayed within decent, smaller dosing, as he's saying. He maybe added some stuff in that wasn't prescription, but he stayed with lower dosing? Yes, because Ronnie is a genetic freak. All right. Now, one thing to understand, guys out there, because you're looking at Ronnie on his pictures and you're like, all right, well, there have been genetic freaks in bodybuilding before, but nobody looked quite like Ronnie. And when Ronnie was looking like Ronnie, pretty much every other guy on stage with him was way bigger, way more cut than most guys in the 70s, 80s, 90s. These guys just got bigger and more cut. So how does that happen? It wasn't an increase in human genetics. It also wasn't just a huge increase in dosages. What really set the difference apart were guys all the way before the 90s were had a certain look. And then guys after the 90s, from 2000 on, complete monsters. Insulin and human growth hormone. So while you could have had maybe a Lee Haney, who just had great genetics, great physique, and he looked awesome, just on regular steroids. Had you added to his regimen some growth hormone and some insulin, along with the steroids and some nutrient timing like these guys do, Lee Haney would have fucking blew up and looked like one of the bodybuilders do today. Okay? The biggest difference, guys, in the way these guys look between pre-90s and post-90s is really the addition and just properly adding in both insulin, mainly insulin, and human growth hormone. And yes, I've said it on the podcast before that during the early 90s all the way up until the very early 2000s is when we got our anti-estrogen drugs. Our Novadex, Duchenne brought it out to light in 89, 90. We got Arimidex, we got Aromacin. All that stuff hit the market in those 10 years. So obviously a guy before the 90s who maybe went over, 400, 500, 600 milligrams of testosterone a week would start to develop some estrogen-like problems. But that same guy in 2002, 2003, 2004, he could do those 500 mgs. There was a little bit of estrogen. He could throw in a little bit of Aromacin. And then, he'll be fine and shit. He could bump his dose up to 1,000 and just throw Aromacin on top of it, like we've discussed before. So, yes, doses did get a little bit higher, but I think it's just the addition of the insulin and human growth hormone. And that's where you get that really clear difference between a Lee Haney kind of guy who just, from that era with that physique, that symmetry, and where you get the monsters that we've had, from 2003, 2004 on. I think that's the real, because we haven't really super developed our training methods. As a matter of fact, most of the winning guys, they will all have different training methodology. So there isn't one training method that we've super developed. No, everybody's still doing their own thing. Same thing with diet. We understand diet a little bit better now. We understand insulin and some of these other things better now. But still, the diet, they could starve themselves and get down back into 60s and 70s and 80s too. He probably could get that huge on not huge dosages, on not 2 grams a week. With great genetics, I do believe it, because I've seen with my own 2 eyes and worked with natural guys that have some amazing body parts, some pretty darn good physiques, and have never touched steroids. So I do understand the genetic factor. And for the rest of the podcast, I'm not going to sit here and accuse Ronnie of doing huge dosage. The dude is just naturally, genetically gifted. And why did he look better than genetically gifted bodybuilders of the old era? Because he added insulin and human growth hormone along with steroids. So, all right, Steve, what do you say?
Yeah, what's the next clip? Let's run the next clip. Yeah, absolutely. And he actually says it later on the podcast. He admits, hey, I have great genetics. I mean, that's a misconception. I think our listeners, though, Rick, they're above the fray on that. I think that our listeners understand that you can't go and kick a football for the next 6 months every day and then be an NFL kicker where you can kick a 60-yard field goal in the rain. I think our listeners understand that. They understand they can't go to the batting cage and become a pro baseball player and be able to hit a 105-mile-an-hour fastball in the World Series. You can't throw a football 1,000,000 times and become the next Tom Brady. I think our listeners understand the same thing with bodybuilding. You can't just take a bunch of steroids, work out, eat a lot of food, and magically become the next Mr. Olympia. Obviously, genetics is the number one thing. So, yeah, I mean, he actually admits it, but it's hard to know that. My view on this, though, it's hard to see that. It's like our galaxy. We don't know what our galaxy looks like because we'd have to go out into space millions of miles and then turn around and look behind us and see what our galaxy looks like with a telescope, So there's no way to know. It's the same thing if you have great genetics or you have bad genetics. You're not going to know if you have great genetics or bad genetics. But I think that if you ask any 3rd grade, 4th grade PE teacher to pick out which kid is genetically gifted physically and which kid will never even come close to even making his high school freshman team, they'll be able to pick out those kids out of the school if they have, half a brain. So let's run the next clip.
All right, here we go.
You be out there catching people selling meth.
Yeah.
Why are you going after bodybuilders who are also cops? That seems ridiculous.
Because they had kids out there that were taking it and committing suicide.
Oh.
See, I didn't know what that was when I was a kid.
They were committing suicide because they were getting depressed from the steroids coming off of it?
Coming off of it.
Yeah.
So they trying to figure out, what are y'all doing? We got to get y'all off this stuff.
And so that's when you got a doctor that was willing to prescribe everything.
Mm-hmm.
So was this while you were doing Mr. Olympia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all that stuff was above board. It was all legal.
Yeah. Everything was legal back then.
And is that the case now?
You know what? That was just when the heat was on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think they got the heat on the guys down like that now.
So the DEA would come to you and you would just say, "Hey, here's my prescriptions."
Yeah.
And they would go, "All right."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One time if you didn't have a prescription, they took your stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
So they'd find whatever you had and take it from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did they know where it was?
You told them.
Oh, okay. Because otherwise they put you in jail.
Yeah. And then search your house, get a search warrant. So they're like, well, I got this and this and that.
Well, I'd imagine you would have to take something to be as big as you were when you were at your
peak. For sure.
It's not really possible to be that big without it.
Without it, no. You can't get that big. Another thing you got to have, too, is genetics.
Yes.
Look at the baseball players that have taken stuff and look at us.
Yeah.
They can't get that big. They're not gifted for it.
Well, they didn't try either, right? They weren't trying to get that big. Like guys like Canseco, he got pretty fucking big.
They couldn't get that big if they wanted to.
Really? So it's a small percentage of the population that could get that big.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And probably like 1% that could get as big as I got. And I was the only guy. Nobody duplicated that since. And you be in that condition.
Right.
And be healthy.
Right.
I don't have any health problem besides the back.
The injuries.
The injuries, yeah. My liver, my kidneys, and my heart, it's all good.
Did you, while you were doing things, did you get frequent blood tests? And
every 3 to 4 months.
And the doctor would go over everything and make sure everything was fine.
Everything's always good.
That seems to be the big misconception about steroids, is that people think steroids
and people think you're taking like tons of stuff.
All right, let's just cut it there to address a couple of things he said there. So he said something Steve and I have been saying on the podcast for a long time. It's genetics. If you're talking about top level, Mr. Olympia, it's genetics. He also said these baseball players, even if they wanted to, they could not get that big. I can believe that. I can, because I've been around so many guys that take really incredible, crazy dosages, and they just can't get that big. They just can't. It doesn't have the same effect on them. And I'm also around guys that do a little small oral anavar cycle, and they look amazing. So there's definitely a huge genetic component to it. And also he says, look, people think you're doing a lot. People think you're doing a ton. And I tend to believe him on that too, because if you're genetically gifted like Ronnie and you're able to stay at a little gram and a half a week, plus some insulin, plus some human growth hormone, which he mentioned. He mentioned the growth hormone. You will just get amazing results, especially if you train as hard as Ronnie. Now, Ronnie is just lifting heavy weights, pushing it hard. So you mix the great genetics with that dedication, that obsession for the gym, and then you add just drugs on top of that. You add the steroids on top of that, and the human growth hormone, and the insulin. See, those are three different paths of anabolism, of building muscle. You have the androgens and your steroids, obviously. You have insulin manipulation, which just manipulates nutrients coming into the cells. And then you have the growth hormone, which stimulates growth in a different way than steroids do. So you're using 3 different paths to actually gain muscle and burn fat, as opposed to just using androgens, just steroids, and just stacking more and more on top of that, right? So, we'll get more into the other part of the clip as we go on, but what do you think, Steve?
Well, yeah, he said several things on that. He mentioned, the law aspect, and, I'm not really, I'm not really sure. I mean, what year was he talking about? He was talking about when he was Mr. Olympia, right?
You know what it is, too, and I've posted about this on a couple places. You got to understand that Ronnie was a law enforcement officer for all these periods that he's discussing, and he could have arrested people that got years or got time. During that time, he could have arrested many folks. And if he admits to being illegally on steroids around the time now, someone could come back and say, hey, this guy was on steroids when he arrested me. He just admitted to it. So you don't know. He could have caught someone doing something bad. He wrote up the report, says, I saw him. Or somebody could have, so many years as a police officer, and then now admitting that you were doing stuff illegally back then, it could open you for some bullshit. It could open you up for some bullshit. So I understand and I respect the fact that Ronnie can't really go and say he was doing something illegal during the times that he was arresting people and writing police reports, So that's something to think about too there.
Yeah, and he won Mr. Olympia. I believe he won it 8 straight years, late 90s up till 2005 was the range. And during that time, I don't know if they were really being aggressive when it comes to steroids. I'm just not sure during that time. I mean, you were more aware of the stuff on Message Board. We didn't even really have the forums didn't really come up until the early 2000s. So I don't know if people were getting busted. But he mentioned a lot of stuff.
The first forums, EliteFitness.com launched in 1996. And so it was around for a long time. And yeah, there were dudes getting busted for steroids, controlled deliveries, mostly controlled deliveries, and mostly local guys that got in local trouble with local cops. There wasn't these huge federal operations like we saw in the mid 2000s and even now the teen thousands. We've seen some of these big federal things. Back in those days, it was mostly local guys getting in local trouble or controlled deliveries of human grade stuff coming in from out of the country. But that was the realm back then. And look, Barry Bonds was 2003 and on. 2000, the scandals. So Ronnie was Mr. Olympia pretty much around the same time that all these baseball players were taking steroids and bringing the heat on everybody, because it doesn't seem like anybody cared about bodybuilders and steroids until baseball players got into steroids, and then they cared about everybody. And by the way, Steve, you want to know something? And I'm sure some of you guys listening to this are going to chuckle when you hear this. It was some of those same guys that were so outraged and so mad about these baseball players cheating with steroids in the 2000s that now, well over 10, 15 years later, are looking into steroids to enhance their own life and get better and feel better and be stronger and lose body fat and gain muscle mass now that you're older. And most of these guys understood and know that the stuff does this because they were around for the scandals back in 2003, 2004, and 2005. So they heard about it then. They were on the bandwagon with, these guys suck, cheating. And now they're 10, 15 years older, and your dick doesn't stand up as hard. It's not as strong. It's so much harder to lose body fat. Now they're looking into steroids. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, you're referring to the Balco investigation. And during that time, it was Conte, Arnold, Anderson. They were basically giving stuff like Maydol to athletes. And this happened from the late 80s up until the early 2000s. And it was kind of like this. It was kind of like a doctor supervision type of thing. And, guys who got in, Jason Giambi. You mentioned Barry Bonds like more than once. I don't know why everyone's always hating on Barry Bonds, by the way. I don't know what the guy ever did to someone. Marion Jones, Bill Romanowski. That's the guy you should be hating on, Rick, not Barry Bonds. Bill Romanowski.
I don't hate on any of these.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. But Bill Romanowski is a real prick. That guy was a racist prick. I don't spit on people in during the football game. That guy was
baseball. I don't follow no baseball that much, but let me ask you this, and I've heard this before. Barry Bonds was just not that great of a player before steroids, and then after steroids, he became the fucking man. Is that correct?
I don't follow baseball that quick, but I think what you're talking about, his pictures, he was a much more skinnier.
No, performance-wise.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just look at his pictures, he blew up. So obviously, yeah. But everyone likes to hate on him a lot, and I think it was because he's black, number one, and number two, I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I mean, that's how. But the second reason, no, it's true. And the second reason was he was a little rough with the media, so he got a lot of enemies within the media. But so are so many other players. They're rough with the media. Bill Belichick is the biggest.
Buddy, there've been a lot of dark players that didn't get any shit. He got shit for using steroids, and white players got shit for using steroids too. So it wasn't.
No, I think baseball is different though, right? Baseball has a lot of racism in baseball. It's one of the
historically back in like the 50s or something.
No. Recent. Look up Boston. Look up the that's routine. They called players N-words and stuff. But I don't want to get into that. Let's go to Ronnie. Let's go to the next. I'm just making a point that people were harder on Barry Bonds. Everyone wants to hate on Barry Bonds.
I'll think about it at the time we edit, but I might clip that out. People don't want to. People are fucking tired of politics, bro. Oh man, so bad is everywhere. So, listen. Let me. If you guys are tired of politics and you want to see some meathead shit,
I don't think it's politics, but okay.
It's all politics, man. If you want to see some meathead shit, want to read something funny, want to see some hot pictures of girls, just to get your mind off all the bullshit when you're on Facebook, you need to follow me on Facebook. Go to RickyVRock.com, RickyVRock.com, or look me up on Facebook, Ricky space V space Rock, and just friend me, follow me, and I discuss not a lick of politics, man. It's all about meathead shit every single day. People don't want to hear that, bro. They don't come to us for that. So, all right, man. So let me play the next clip and we get it going. All right, so here it is.
Tons of stuff. I probably wasn't taking no more than what those baseball players were taking.
Just working out more, lifting
more, and gifted genetically for it.
Dorian Yates said basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was taking a lot, not compared to a lot of guys.
Exactly. Yeah, people think I was taking massive amounts of stuff. If I'd been taking massive amounts of stuff, I don't think I'd still be here. I don't think I'd be as healthy as I am now.
Right.
Besides my back surgery and neck surgeries, I'm all good. And like I said, my liver and my kidneys and heart and everything's still holding up real good.
Now, when you would get off for that 3-month period, would you cycle off of everything?
All right, just a quick interjection because we want to go to the next thing. A lot of guys that pump a lot of steroids and don't get incredible results, they think the pros got to be using more. And yeah, these guys do use maybe a little bit more than most average people and use it more continuously than most average people. But when you get to the top level like Ronnie, these are guys that looked incredible before ever touching this stuff. I mean, these guys are out there. These genetic freaks do exist. We've seen them in the gym. Sometimes we assume that they are using steroids, unless it's somebody we know personally, and we know they have no idea about anything to do with steroids, but they just have those crazy arms or those great abs or just those incredible set of legs, but they've never touched this stuff. So I do believe that. It just throw that in. Let me finish putting out the clip for you.
Yeah. Really? Cold turkey. I didn't take anything or nothing.
And what did you feel like over those 3 months?
Normal.
Really?
Normal. Didn't bother me a bit.
So you got just great genetics, man.
Craziest ever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's no way you could take all,
Cold turkey, I stopped everything. One day, I'd be taking, a bunch of stuff. Next day, nothing.
And your body would just feel normal.
Body felt normal. Didn't bother me a bit.
That's so crazy.
Didn't get depressed or nothing,
Yeah.
Felt normal.
That's just genetics.
Yeah. I still was strong.
Wow.
I could still, squat, I could squat, 700-800 naturally.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically capped a lot of your gains.
Yep. I was still 300. I'm still 300 pounds, without taking all that stuff.
And so then after the 3 months, then you would slowly ramp back up?
Slowly ramp back up, yeah.
And all this under doctor supervision?
All this under doctor supervision. Yeah, and all the while I'm getting my blood work done every 3 to 4 months.
So a lot of guys, after they're done competing, then they have to get on testosterone replacement therapy because the endocrine system's kind of messed up.
Exactly.
Did you have to do that as well?
Yeah.
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 It seems like that's just a part of the sport, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because like for the longest time, these guys were doing these ads in magazines, and they were attributing everything to some supplement that they were selling.
All right, so he goes on again to say that he cycled off cold turkey without post-cycle therapy and some of this stuff. What do I think about that? Look, Ronnie said it. I'm not going to sit here on this podcast and call him a liar and everything he said. And he is a genetic freak. I mean, we know that for a fact. Also, there are other things to consider, too. I've heard many guys, and even myself, if you shoot enough steroids in over a long period of time, it would seem, and any guys out there that have developed some scar tissue from shooting, you know what the hell I'm talking about. You may develop some like little pockets of steroids that even after you get off of this stuff, you still feel pumped up and still feel like you're on, weeks and weeks later. Maybe he had some a little bit of a scar tissue depots that kept releasing. Who knows? Maybe he's just that genetically gifted that he's not going to feel the difference of coming off the sauce. Maybe he was on a little bit of something, on a little bit of testosterone, came off everything else, but he doesn't, for the context of the conversation he's having right now, maybe he's not dissecting the difference and being complete. Maybe that is what he means when he says he's off. Who knows? But it just doesn't. I'm sorry, guys. It's just hard to believe that anybody holding on to that much mass could just quit cold turkey and not feel the difference in their levels of androgen. It's hard to believe, but I mean, it is Ronnie, Mr. Olympia, the man, the myth, the genetic freak. So he could. I mean, yeah. What do you think, Steve?
We'll never know the truth, but I can tell you from a normal gym rat who does that, people do that all the time. And what you'll see is they'll work out like almost every day. You'll see them all the time in the gym, and they get bigger and they get stronger. And then you'll see them like once a week or once every 2 weeks come in. And you're like, hey, bro, where you been? And, I've had some issues, blah, blah, blah. And they'll be so much smaller and they'll be so much weaker. And, they're off. And a lot of times they just come off. They don't take a PCT or nothing. So people do that all the time. I mean, he's a genetic freak. We don't know what Ronnie Coleman looked like in the off season. He could have just shrunk up. That's actually a good idea, by the way, Rick. If you think about it, if you come off and you get a little, you lose some strength, you lose those androgens in your body, you lose a little muscle. That's actually healthy. It's healthy for your body. You're giving your body a break. So, and we know these guys in the off season, every professional sport has an off season, right? So it's not like they're going 365 days a year. And the same thing with bodybuilding. They have off seasons too.
You know what I would have, if I had been interviewing him, because I asked different questions to Joe because this is our industry, this is our niche. I would have asked him like, hey, Ronnie, so if when you came off, you felt no different, why even get back on? Why don't you just keep doing it? That's maybe what I would have asked. That's a good question. I mean, if he says he got off for 3 months and felt no different, and he was still feeling great, looking great, strong, lean, why even get back on this shit, man?
Well, I think if he would stay off for a long period of time, he would start shrinking, rapidly. If he went off like for a year straight, then yeah, you're going to shrink up quite a bit. You're not going to keep everything. But if you come off for a couple of months,
if you're doing like a long run of EQ, DECA, and maybe some testosterone on the canoate, you can get off. And in about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, you might still feel something from those long esters. We're talking about the three that would have been readily available to Ronnie around that time: DECA, EQ, and test. I mean, look, when I travel, because I travel to out of the country a lot to South America, and there I can get testosterone on the canoate, human grade. It's called Libido from Bayer Sharing. Basically, no script. I can just get it. It's a vial that has 4 cc's, a total of 1 gram of testosterone, and I'll probably shoot 2 of those vials the last couple of weeks before I leave. And when I'm back in the stateside, I don't have to worry about going out to get testosterone or anything. I start using, again, my plug for my products, AC Generate ES. As soon as I take the shots, So that way, as the ester is leaving my body and it's getting lower and lower, the HC generated ES is picking up my own production. And that's a way that I'll juice when I'm out of the country, so I don't have to deal with legalities. Then before I come back in, I'll do some long esters on the last couple of weeks as I'm doing my PCT coming off. And that's worked. That's worked. I've been a month and a half away from my testosterone on the canoate shot and still feeling just incredible pumps in the gym. So I will give that up. I've sat there like, holy shit, it's been 6-7 weeks since my last shot, and I can tell I'm on some shit, even though I haven't taken any real steroids in my body for 6 weeks, but those esters are still kicking. Plus, another thing that doesn't get discussed a lot, guys, is those ester chains, the longer they get, the closer they are to a lipid, to a fat. I mean, they're basically a fat. So they when you get those long esters, like the DECA, like the EQ, like the testosterone and the canoate, they can actually, as they're in your system, that ester can actually bond itself to some fat and just sit there and not go anywhere. And then over time, it'll unbond from the fat and go into your system and actually get used. It's one of the reasons why DECA can get detected up to like a year and a half or something, because those longer esters can and will just the ester, the tail just attaches to fat and just sits there. It doesn't go anywhere for maybe weeks, and then one day it just gets released out. I've heard of the same sort of thing happening with like THC and some of this other stuff that can get deposited in your fatty tissue. So just a couple of things to throw out there about that.
All right, Rick. Yeah, we got like 10-15 minutes left. Let's do another one. You got another one?
Mm-hmm. Some creatine or some this. I mean, all that stuff does something.
It helps you out a little bit,
but it's not going to get you.
It's not going to get you 330 pounds with 3% body fat.
No.
No, it's definitely not going to do that.
Was that something that you were allowed to talk about while you were competing?
Yeah, I mean,
did it come up?
Yeah. I talked about it. I didn't have no reason to hide it. People,
because it seems like people were
not
hiding
stupid.
They're not. No, when you got that big, yeah. But it seemed like there was an era where bodybuilding kind of tried to pretend that they weren't taking that.
Yeah, because of all those people committing suicide and kids taking all that stuff and doing it the wrong way, not having it prescribed and all this kind of stuff.
Also, the more is better
black
philosophy.
market to get bad stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
But there were some guys that would just say, well, the way to win is to take way more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And see what your body could tolerate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you take, the better you're going to be.
I knew a guy like that.
Yeah.
And he wound up having a heart attack.
Exactly.
We used to call him garden hoses because his arms looked like garden hoses for veins.
Yeah.
He had just these giant veins all over his arms. It didn't make sense. But he was just on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That he didn't make it to 30.
Yeah.
He died before he was 30.
Some people, they do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
I didn't start taking anything till I was 30.
Really?
Yeah. Remember, I was drug-free for a long time. And I did everything naturally for a long, long time because I was, like I said, gifted.
Right.
Yeah.
What inspired you? What made you decide when you were 30 that you had to do something?
One thing I wonder is if Ronnie was like competing natural against guys on steroids, did Ronnie ever compete in a natural show? Or he didn't? I mean, if I had, I don't know. If Ronnie was getting up there with guys on juice and not winning, and then he could have just walked through all the natural tested shows where people were getting tested and stuff. No, but anyway, let me just keep playing.
Ass kicked.
In competitions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The highest I would place was like third or something,
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, you competitive. The other guys got a competitive advantage on you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make this thing equal.
Is this something somebody suggested to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people in the gym, like, hey, Ronnie.
No, one of the competitors suggested that to me.
Oh.
Guy by the name of Flex Wheeler.
Oh, okay.
My best friend in the world.
That guy was fucking huge.
Huge. He taught me everything I know.
Did he really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He also got me the best nutritionist ever. That's how I won my first Olympia.
So is that how most guys find out about steroids, from other guys who are competing?
If you were smart, that's the way you would do it.
You know, that's interesting that he said that a nutritionist is what helped them win, because I keep saying it over and over again. Diet is so incredibly important. Diet is just, I mean, it's just it. The main reason most guys don't get their money's worth out of steroids is because their diet is terrible. That's, you know, and for Ronnie, somebody genetically gifted already on steroids, he said would make the difference for him was a good nutritionist. And I believe that 100%. If a guy, you could have two guys running the same cutting cycle. One guy is doing it right, you know, intermittent fasting, or even if he's doing 6 meals a day, he's just doing it just right. The other guy's not taking his meal as serious, maybe cheating, maybe has a hard time staying away from temptation. And I mean, the results on the same amount of steroids are going to be vastly different. Same thing with the bulking cycle. The guy who sets his timer and is just scarfing down that protein at the right times is going to gain more mass and make the most out of the steroids than a guy who's not. So I mean, one of the things that all of these top-level bodybuilders have in common is that discipline to get their feeding done and get all their calories in and everything at the right time. And then the sacrifice to starve themselves later on. Because at those levels, you're like force feeding yourself during the bulking phase where your stomach hurts. And then you're starving yourself to the point where, you know, it might take you 15, 20 minutes just to muster up the energy to get out of bed on the last days going up to the competition. So yeah. You know, it's really that diet really dials it in. And look, even without any steroids, even without fucking training, if you just keep a nice, clean, good diet, you'll have a decent physique, even if you don't train at all. Okay, so diet really is number one, really, when it comes down to it. Wouldn't you agree?
Especially for a gym rat, you know, because a lot of people go to the gym, Rick. And, you know, the gym is supposed to be the most healthiest place. Even yoga. Even when I go to yoga, it's supposed to be the healthiest people, right? And you still have people who are overweight, not overweight, but I'm not going to use that term, but I'll use the term fat. They have too much body fat on their body. And we've become accustomed to that. Even yoga teachers have you know, you might have like one or two yoga teachers at the yoga studio who have a gut. And you'll have personal trainers at the gym who have a gut. That's not fitness. That's just someone who, you know, maybe they have a medical condition or something that makes them like that. But so I'm not picking on them, but I'm saying there's definitely nutrition and diet is the most important thing.
Two big factors that have kept the average American really fat has been the whole marketing campaign between low-fat foods, right? That set us up for a couple of decades of people being really fat because they think low-fat foods are the way to go. And also the marketing behind the importance of breakfast. I think between the marketing telling us that we need to slam simple carbs every morning and the marketing tell us that low-fat foods are the way to go and diet foods are the way to go. Between those two, I think we've set up America for a couple of decades of a lot of obesity, in my opinion. And that goes, I mean, that's not even taking into account GMOs and some of these other things and soil depletion and nutrient depletion in the soil that makes the foods less nutrient dense and not even taking all that stuff into account, just those two marketing campaigns, big breakfast, importance of breakfast, and low-fat foods.
Absolutely. And then also the marketing of sugary and fast food to the kids. Our generation, Rick, when we were watching cartoons, we would see a cartoon for fast food and it'd be all sugary cereals and stuff, Captain Crunch, whatever. it'd be marketing. They have like cartoon characters for these cereals. Remember growing up, I used to clip coupons, $1 off, 50 cents off, and give it to my mom to go grocery shopping. She'd get us that. Drench it with tons of milk, tons of hormone-infused, pasteurized, sugary, lactose-laden milk. And that's the type of foods that, we grew up eating. And then the third one, besides what you said, with the low-fat, with the low fat, you're absolutely right. Fat's not bad for you. And then the big breakfast, and breakfast is supposed to be something we're supposed to have. The third one is the preservatives that's been put in our food. It's all refined oils. It's all refined oils and preservatives in our food. And that goes into our body, and it signals your body to store fat. So.
Yeah, guys. So let's continue with the interview. See what else we find.
Somebody that knows, what they're doing, is somebody that's successful at it, not some dumb trainer,
right?
That think they know,
right?
Flex had won, major contests, and I was a real experienced bodybuilder at the time. I'm still new to the sport,
right?
I didn't get into it till I was 24. I think he started probably when he was like 16, 17, somewhere in there. I never did that kind of stuff because we didn't have it where I was from.
How much of a night and day difference was it once you started taking stuff?
As far as the conditioning, night and day.
Night and day in your ability to work, to put in work?
No.
The condition of your body?
Yeah, the only thing changed was conditioning.
What do you mean by?
My strength didn't go up that much.
What do you mean by conditioning? The way you looked?
Yeah, the way I looked.
So like leanness.
My definition and, leanness and kind of, that's the only thing really.
Well, your strength didn't go up that much.
My strength didn't go up that much. I was deadlifting 750 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, well, because I was still doing pop.
No, so one thing he mentioned on there about getting a real trainer, we say that on the podcast all of the time. If you're competing, you need a coach. Somebody that knows their shit. In Ronnie's case, he's taking advice from probably the best guy to take advice from in his situation, another guy with comparable genetics, who's just more experienced in the game than you are. That's the perfect guy to take advice from, because here's someone who has pretty close to your same genetics in every way, and he's also competing. He's also going through the same grind as you are. That's the perfect guy to model after. If you're a competitor, I'm sure you can listen to our podcast and everything we do here for just reference and to know more. But at the end of the day, you need that coach. You need that guy that knows the competition realm, knows all of that, can look at you, will look at your progress pictures, will make adjustments day by day, week by week as you're getting closer. You need that level, and Ronnie's right. You've got to deal with a guy that does that. I help guys all the time do consultations. I help guys, just regular guys like me, who want to not have a dad bod, who want to look just better than average. And I'm great at that. But I refuse, and I just don't deal with competitors, because I feel as though there's so many better other people out there to help them with their competition that I will be doing them a disservice to take them on as clients. And sometimes, you get people that like see some of my work, they listen to the podcast and they want to deal with me directly, but I've got to tell them, like, there's so many better people. Like, your coach should be looking at you and helping you pose. I can't do that. I can't help a guy become better at posing. There's just some things that you need to understand and find a specialized trainer for. And Ronnie's absolutely right. I mean, shit, he got another guy, same genetics, same goals, same everything, giving him drug advice. I mean, what better way, right?
Yeah, he makes some good points on that one. It also, if what he's saying is accurate, it just shows you he built a really strong base before using these PEDs. And that's something that a lot of guys don't do. I'd say most guys, maybe about 80%, they don't really build a strong base. before going on, or they run steroids too young or something like that. So if he is saying that his strength didn't budge that much when he went on steroids, then that means he was so naturally strong in the first place.
He maxed out,
Yeah. So, I mean, and then the steroids and you know, that's different than someone who can bench 125 pounds and then hops on tren and he moves his bench press up to 200 pounds. He like almost doubles his bench press. Is that good for you? No, that's going to cause injuries. It's a lot of pressure on your body to handle in such a short amount of time. But we see that stuff all the time. Then they come off, they lose half their strength, and then they want to use steroids again to get them back over 200. It's a dangerous cycle. So he makes a good point on that one. Definitely build base.
All right, great. All right, let's keep it going. Only a few minutes left.
I listened to shows when I was doing bodybuilding.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
At the same time?
At the same time, yeah.
That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
Yeah. But, you know, that was something I loved to do.
But those powerlifting guys are usually quite a bit fatter. They don't mind having a lot of body fat.
The more body fat you have, the stronger you're going to be.
Why is that?
Because you got more cushion around the muscle. More water around the muscle. And all that stuff makes you stronger, gives you more energy.
Really?
Especially if you're naturally gifted with strength.
So did you ever feel like, was that ever pulling you back? Like powerlifting? Did you ever think about getting back into that again? Or were you just completely committed to bodybuilding at that time?
Yeah, after a while, I kind of just got committed to bodybuilding. Because I was, working full-time police department, trying to do powerlifting, trying to do bodybuilding. Just too much. And I had all these jobs, too. I would do security at Denny's on Fridays and Saturday nights from 12 to 4.
Oh, Jesus.
I would work in my apartment complex.
That might be the most dangerous spot in the world. Denny's from 12 to 4 on the weekends?
My first fight was at Denny's.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, my first one. The one that I used for force complaint filed against me was at Denny's.
Yeah, Denny's can be rough at late night, drunks showing up to eat.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
It was a drunk guy.
That, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You want to try to resist me? Yeah.
Who the fuck is sober at Denny's at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Exactly. Hardly nobody.
So when you were 30, you started taking steroids, and you won the Olympia for the first time when you were 34. So that's like 4 years.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. But you got to remember the base I had before that.
Right. So it's base and hard work and also genetics.
Yeah.
It's the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Do you think as a bodybuilder you really need like the perfect storm of things to be a champion?
You do. Yeah, you do. You're not going to be it if you don't have it. It's just like trying to be president of the United States, Only certain people are going to be president of the United States. Everybody not going to make it at that job.
Well, it's like when I look at some Mr. Olympias, it's so hard to. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm like, I'm not.
You have to have
an eye for it.
You have to be trained, Because I used to be the same way. I thought everybody looked the same.
Yeah, that's how I looked at them. Like everybody looks giant.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
everybody was just big to me.
Huge.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, everybody looks preposterous.
And I thought I could never, ever attain that.
But you did. Not only did you set the gold standard.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy looking back?
It's crazy looking back.
Do you ever wake up and just say, like, what the fuck did I do? Look what I did.
Yeah, yeah. Because when you're doing it, you're always in that mindset of doing it.
Yes.
You're not enjoying it.
Right. You just
you can't sit around and enjoy it.
Right.
You got to stay focused and dedicated.
Can't rest on your laurels.
You got to be always, mindful.
Yeah.
So there's no enjoying all that when you have success like that.
Well, I think that mindset too is the only way you become a champion like yourself.
Exactly.
That just keep going, keep grinding mindset, don't enjoy anything.
Yep. You enjoy it later.
Yeah.
After it's all over with. But I only enjoy it now.
There's such a small handful of Mr. Olympias. I mean, that is the elite of the elite club to be in for bodybuilders.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta have an amazing sense of satisfaction.
And a lot of guys that win it multiple times.
Yeah, why is that?
Because it's only elite number of guys can be Mr. Olympia. And once you get there, you found the formula. And it takes a while for somebody to come in and knock you off because nobody's found that formula.
And you don't have to be or have Mr. Olympia aspirations to find your own formula. Steve and I, for our just looking good with our shirt off level, we found our own formula. We found what steroids we can work with, what kind of diet we can do, training. You got to find your formula. Good easy way to get this: journal and take blood tests. Keep going.
Like you have. You know, I 8 in a row for me. 8 in a row for Lee Haney.
Yeah.
7 for the Arnold. 6 for Yates. Cutler 4. You know, look at all those. How many guys I just named, and how many years is that?
That's a lot of years. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what an elite group of human beings.
Just
though.
me, Lee, and Arnold is 25 years almost.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And
3 guys, 25 years.
When you say the right formula, it's the right amount of training, the right amount of rest, the right amount of food, the right nutrition, all the above.
Yeah. And that's hard to do.
Hard to dial it in.
It's hard to dial it in.
And did you dial it in with the help of a coach?
Nutritionist.
Just a nutritionist.
Diet, guys.
But what about a coach? Like
that's the same thing.
But
same thing.
Does the nutritionist maintain your schedule for your workouts as well?
Yeah. Well, I did my own workout schedule.
So you did that all yourself?
All myself, yeah. He did all my other stuff.
So he did all the food, made sure your body's well fueled, but all the weightlifting, all that was set up by you.
Yeah, that was me.
How did you know when it's enough and when it's not enough and when it's too much?
Well, you can only do so much. You can only do what you can do. You know your limitations, and you know what you got to do. So once you figure all this out, you know that's your formula, and that's what you take from year to year.
And that formula is based on your body, how your body performs.
Yeah. Everybody's body is different.
Did you ever have guys coming up to you? I mean, you must have had guys coming up to you saying, what do I have to do to be like you?
All the time.
What'd you tell them?
Hire a personal trainer. That's what I had, you know. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to do all that on my own. The guy who gave me the free membership to the gym, Brian Dobson, the guy that taught me all this stuff. He taught me how to pose. He taught me how to train as a bodybuilder and not a powerlifter. It's 2 different types of training. He taught me everything I needed to know, and he was kind of like my personal trainer. You know, if he wouldn't have taught me all that stuff, I wouldn't have knew nothing. And so I always tell people, if you want to know something, learn somebody that knows all this stuff. And that's how you get the right formula. Was
this guy with you throughout your whole career?
No.
Just in the beginning, just to teach you the basics?
Basics, yeah.
And then from then on, it was all you?
Yeah, I had to get other trainers and nutritionists. I had some trainers and nutritionists that weren't that good along the way, like a couple. And I finally found the right guy from Flex Wheeler. He turned me on to the guy who helped me in my first Olympia, Chad Nichols. He's the guy that found the right formula for me.
And when you had this right formula, how many workouts a day were you doing?
1.
Just 1?
Yeah.
Just 1 long workout?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half every day. That's
hour 15 minutes.
So it was really?
Yeah.
So it's just about the intensity.
It's about the intensity.
And was there a time where you were working out more than that? You felt like it was too much, or
no?
You just always had it dialed in.
Always had it dialed in.
Wow.
You know, I had to do 2 hours of cardio a day.
2 hours of cardio.
An hour in the morning, an hour at night after I got off work.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of shit? Like elliptical or something?
I did Stairmaster. I would do the elliptical and the treadmill.
You would run on a treadmill?
Well, I ain't gonna call it running.
I'm just thinking you're so big.
Yeah, that's why you call it running.
What did you do? Just kind of fast walking?
Yeah, like about 3 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, for an hour.
An hour. So this is just to burn off the fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Goddamn, you must hate cardio now.
No, I still do it.
You still do it?
Yeah.
But I would imagine that would be enough cardio for the rest of your fucking life. 2 hours a day, every day. Be like, oh my God, if I never see another piece of cardio equipment again for the rest of my life.
You get used to it after a while, you know.
What do you do now?
I do the bike now. I can walk on the treadmill, but I have to hold on
the handles. Yeah.
So I don't do it. I just do the bike.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, after this show is over, I'm going to connect you to Dr. Neil Reardon, who is in Dallas, and I really hope that he can help you. And
it would be great if you could.
The next time come in
I'm
here.
never giving up on it.
Oh, and I know you're not giving up on anything, man. Guys like you don't give up on anything.
No. I'm going to walk again unassisted. I guarantee that.
I believe you. If anybody can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
if I can't do it, it can't be done.
I want to connect you to him and wish you the best of luck. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming in here, man.
You invite me. Oh, I got a new book out.
Oh, okay.
What is it? It's called Yeah, Buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
It's one of my sayings.
That is one of your sayings.
Get it on Amazon. And my company is Ronnie Coleman Signature Series. That's how I make my living now. I own my own supplement company, RonnieColeman.net is that. And my book is called Yeah, Buddy, one of my favorite sayings. But Yeah, Buddy, My Incredible Story, and get it on Amazon.
All right, folks, go get that book. Go to RonnieColeman.com.net. RonnieColeman.net. Get some of my supplements.
We got 25, 30 different products.
Beautiful. I hope we sell a bunch of them.
We have been selling a bunch.
Sell some more. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Ronnie Coleman, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. Lightweight. Yeah, great interview. This is the second time I listened to it. I really enjoyed the hell out of that interview. Any final closing comments on the Ronnie? Look, one thing you guys have to also understand is this. This is very important. Ronnie is addicted to the gym and to working out way more than most of us are. And if you want any sort of proof of it, is the guy can barely move his back now. I mean, he's almost. His mobility is greatly impaired, and he still gets out and works out, probably more than you guys out there listening right now. Okay, now I've dealt with clients, people, friends that, we just had a baby. I can't work out. Something happens and it completely throws them off. Oh, my left knee is bad. I can't get out to the gym. Ronnie has had several back surgeries, herniated discs. He's got more surgeries to go, and he's still in the gym. So it's a level of addiction at this point. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it commitment. You're committed to a goal when trying to be Mr. Olympia, but he's out there working on his biceps and his shoulders, and he's not going to any shows. So it is just something that his brain and his body needs. It's just something that completes his life. I guess I could call it an addiction, because it might even be detrimental for him to be out there lifting weights with screws in his spine. But he's got that dedication for the gym. He's got that love for the pain of working out. And that with the genetics, with a little bit of drugs and the right nutrition, I'll get you a long way in bodybuilding. What do you say, Steve?
The difference between his situation, though, and a normal gym rat, Rick, and a lot of people won't want to hear this, and I understand, is that he's making millions of dollars monetizing his book, monetizing his nutrition brand, stuff like that. A normal gym rat, if you're injured, if your knee hurts, or your elbow hurts, or your back hurts, or your neck hurts, you need to take a break from the gym. But I get what you're saying. I get your point.
Well, his income is not tied for him going into the gym. He's not taking his shirt off to promote his brand. He's using
No. But I would trade, 7 herniated discs and having trouble walking the rest of my life to make millions of dollars, where my wife and my kids and my grandkids and great grandkids never have to worry about money again. And my family,
more.
You know what I'm saying? That's my point.
More the reason most people won't get out to the gym. If you're hurt and you already have money stored, I mean, what the hell are you doing in the gym, right? You already got a wife. What are you trying to look good for somebody? Really, he just needs it in his life and in his brain.
Yeah, if he's going through all these surgeries, Rick, and he's still having trouble walking, that means that he's screwed. I mean, there's no surgery in the world that's going to fix that unless they invent some bionic.
Well, they are, and they're inventing all of it. Yeah,
it's. But I mean, if you start messing around with your spine with surgeries and chiropractors and all these scams that are out there, it's just going to make it worse. Like, you really have to do maintenance on your body. But like I'm saying, a normal gym rat listening to this, don't screw your back up. I got 3 herniated discs, at least 3 herniated discs. Rick, you probably have herniated discs. Every weightlifter probably has herniated discs. Does it bother you? Does it not bother you? It may bother you 5 years from now, may bother you 20 years from now, may bother you tomorrow. We don't know that, but you really have to.
I got an X-ray on my back. My back feels perfect, except for one little sore spot when I sleep on my stomach. It's a little sore spot. And I've been warned about that. I got X-rays before, but yeah, now that you mention it, anytime.
Yeah, X-rays won't help you with herniated disc. You got to get an MRI, but but
you can see something obviously wrong, then you follow it up with an MRI, obviously.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, like, in my situation, if I had listened to the right people 10 years ago, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. So I listened to people, Rick, who told me, push through it.
That's silly. That's dumb.
Now I know it's dumb, but back then that's the people I listened to, because you have peer pressure. People don't have your best interests.
I'll tell you a quick story, guys, not to bore everybody. But just over 10 years ago, my mother got rear-ended, got whiplash. And she got about 3 herniated discs from the whiplash. And the operation they offered her was obviously just to put the plate in and infuse those vertebrae, so there's no movement. At that time, they would have to like go in through the front of her neck and have to pull her throat and muscles apart to get in there, and she could have lost her ability to speak. So she decided that she was going to rough through the pain and wait for the surgery, and we both discussed it, and that's what she wanted to do. So we just got her into yoga and into stretching, and when that alleviated the pain a lot, like massages, deep tissue massage and yoga. Now it's been 12 years now. Okay. And every 5 years there's a new surgery she could get. We just heard about, actually Joe Rogan was discussing it too. Eddie Bravo had actual titanium sliding discs put into his back. He's back to doing jiu-jitsu again. And I believe competition. Yeah, I think he beat Royler Gracie after his surgery. So they're not fusing anymore. And I believe they can do the discs. And when this whole COVID thing blows over and everything, it's something we're going to revisit, because she's thinking about having surgery now after all these years. It's after all these years of just holding the pain back with yoga, deep tissue massages. She's just not able to do it anymore. And 3 herniated discs she's had for 12 years that she's dealt with.
Yeah, massage therapy definitely does not help me. It makes it worse, because when you're massage therapy with this, you're basically causing it to flare up. It doesn't even make any sense to do massage therapy unless the person knows what they're doing. Because if you just go to a normal massage place, $80 massage therapist, they're not going to know what they're doing. They're going to make your problem worse. Massaging a herniated disc doesn't make any sense.
In my mother's case, because it's up by her shoulder and neck, she'll have spasms, really bad spasms on her upper back, or like one of her traps will spasm for like a couple of days. So in her particular case, getting all of those muscles right up there on the upper back, getting them all massaged down really, really helps relax all that area there for her, and it keeps her pretty pain-free. But it's specifically where it's at. She's got, it's right at the neck, upper back area.
Good. Yeah. It's hard, man. I've been maintaining it myself ever since I, went overboard in my mid-30s. It's been an ongoing struggle, but no one told me about what we're telling you guys. No one told us about this. All right, guys. Well, we'll definitely discuss this. Check out our other podcast, another episode.
Guys, so guys, just in closing, I'm going to give my final thoughts on the Ronnie interview, and Steve, you give your final thoughts. Love Ronnie, love the guy. I like the fact that he's addicted to working out. It just inspires all of us. And great guy, nice guy. I don't want to call Ronnie a liar, okay? I like Ronnie, and I don't think he was lying. I just think there's certain things he really should not say or really should not talk about. Do I believe that he did these low doses that he's saying he did? Before listening to this podcast, I assumed that he was probably up in the higher dose and more aggressive. After hearing him, after listening to it, guy's a genetic freak. He was big, had big biceps since, he was a teenager. Incredible guy. Yes, I believe him. He probably did very low dosing, not as high as we really think. Why, if he did low dosing, why did his body develop such a monstrosity where maybe like Lee Haney didn't get like that? Well, insulin and growth hormone, insulin and human growth hormone, those two factors. And also, on a little different side note, the judging too and the IFBB allowed for guys to get disproportionately fat. So disproportionately big. So once a guy got a certain size, and their waist started to bulge out because of the size, because they're so big, the judges were not penalizing that. They were still placing guys and winning guys as long as they were big and cut, even if their waist wasn't great. Now, Lee Haney days, you had to have a nice, tight, small waist, and that's that classic bodybuilding look. And so maybe Lee Haney would not have wanted to get any bigger. Arnold said that in the movie Pumping Iron. He says, look, my physique is perfect right now. I'm at a point that if I put in more shoulders or more chest, then I have to grow other parts of my body to go along with it because I'm in perfect symmetry now. The judging also kind of opened the gate for these guys to get as big as possible, even if their waistline got bulged out. And then we've had these guys with like 4 or 5%, 3% body fat, and they've got big pot bellies. So that's what it is.
Yeah, my final thoughts is I had a high school teacher once say this. She said, some people are blessed, genetically for physical. Some people are blessed genetically for academic. Some people are blessed genetically, for this, for that. Some people are great at, designing a home with furniture. Some people are great at writing. Some people are great at construction, building things. We all have our gifts. Ronnie Coleman, perhaps number one, genetics for specifically bodybuilding, maybe of all time. And we were lucky enough to live in his era of dominance. This guy in his prime would have beat anybody in bodybuilding. And maybe even like 50 or 100 years from now, guys will look back and still say that, for a fact. So just a tremendous genetics. So it is very humbling to hear him go on that show, unlike so many others, and actually say, yeah, I have top 1% genetics. Really, he has top 0.000000001% genetics. He's got the best genetics of anybody in the world. There may be 3 other guys who have better genetics than him in the world who are stuck in some country and they don't have the opportunity to show that to anybody. But yeah, he's tremendous genetics. So, if you ever get a chance to go and see these guys up close, it'll blow your mind at how big these are. So I always tell people, you got to be realistic with your goals when you start getting into bodybuilding. If you're 20 years old and you want to be like Ronnie Coleman one day, unless you were the best athlete in your state while you're in high school, you're not going to be the next Ronnie Coleman. So don't even think about it.
I don't mean to slow your roll, Steve. Just want to throw something in it. I've said it on the podcast several times. If you're a young guy, here's how you know if you can make it and be a pro like Ronnie level. As you're working out, somebody will just tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, man, you look fucking incredible. You should continue to do this. Someone who knows their shit. someone who really knows their shit. In Ronnie's case, and he explained it in the podcast, the guy who owned the gym said, hey, if you come here and work out and lift weights, I'll give you a free membership. I mean, this is someone who owns a gym, saw this guy walk in and say, that fucking guy has it. Ronnie was probably there just a couple of months, just showed incredible progress in just a little bit of time. And the guy tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, man, you should continue to fucking do this. Same thing with every top level Olympian will tell you a similar story. They were just in there, just working it out for fun, whatever, powerlifting. Kevin LeBron, he's a powerlifter. And somebody would say, hey, man, you need to bodybuild. You look incredible. And same story, he echoed it.
All right, guys. So great show. Steve Smee and Rick, another episode of Evolutionary Radio. Appreciate you guys listening. We will be on next week for another one. Have a good one.
Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.